All right, we are back on MorningLine. I'm still a little giddy over that. That was awesome. That was awesome. I see a lot of you following that as well. But Dougie Fresh coming on and talking about it. That's the neat thing right now with the way it's set up, and we'll be doing this moving forward. When we can get guests, and I saw that he had this video 20 seconds or more, and that he was working in conjunction with this doctor to get the word out. We said, let's see if we can get him on the show. And he could just stay on for one segment. I could have talked to him the whole show about his amazing career in the rap business and all of, the whole human beatbox. I mean, the guy, when you think about his beatboxing, he was a pioneer of that. I mean, anyway, it was, and he's involved in a really important health issue here, getting the word out, especially to younger folks. And it was a pleasure talking to him and the doctor. And we'll follow him. And if we can get him again, we'll have him on. But we try to seek guests like this from around the country, if it's having a play here, obviously, where our viewers are. So glad to have them on. All right, we're going to shift gears a bit here now as we go from that to legal issues and what's happening right now on a lot of fronts within the pandemic. Several things to discuss this morning with News Channel 5 legal analyst Nick Leonardo, who I think joins us now live by Skype. Good morning to you, Nick. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, I can hear you. What about yourself?
I got you loud and clear. Usually you're sitting right next to me. You got a tough act to follow. Dougie Fresh was just on.
Yeah, I saw that, Mr. Lottie Dottie Rumble Dumble himself. You hate to go on after that, that's for sure.
He was awesome. Well, Nick, listen, thanks for joining us. You've been a regular guest periodically. We haven't seen you in a while. I'm not sure exactly where to start because we've talked before about just what's happening in the courts, but I wanted to ask you first about this lawsuit that's been filed by one of the downtown bars, and you discussed it in a story yesterday on News Channel 5 at 10, but a lawsuit filed against the governor and I think the mayor, saying, it was wrong that they shut down and cost them so much money, and, that the civil liberties were violated here and their right to have business against this pandemic. I just wanted your take on that and whether or not it's more symbolic or if they actually have a shot at winning a lawsuit like this.
Well, it was really well done lawsuit, and the way it works is that anytime you have a fundamental right that is encroached upon by government, such as the right to assemble, such as the right to pursue whatever job you would like to pursue, such as the freedom of contract. The only way the government can legislate or do anything that infringes upon that is that if they have a compelling governmental interest, and it's the least restrictive way to further that interest. And basically what the plaintiff is saying in this case is that this was not the least restrictive way to further that interest by telling people they can't go to church, by telling people they can't open their businesses. They said, what about if we were to have quarantined people that were positive for COVID-19 early on, and followed up with them and had the contact tracing? That would have been the least restrictive means, and that would have been more appropriate. And they also did a good job of talking about how the science didn't really support the fact that if you go by a big box store like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, there's a ton of folks, but yet this individual over here that has a restaurant that also is a bar isn't allowed to open. So I do think that there is some merit to what they're saying, but again, it's an issue of first impression. We've never seen anything like this in America. So it's a good lawsuit, and they're asking for an injunction to prevent enforcement of further stay-at-home or closure orders, as well as a declaration from the federal court that what the governor and the mayor have done is unconstitutional.
Could they also seek damages, Nick? Some of these businesses have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some of them may be forced to close or, just not be able to go on. Are they seeking that as well, or is it just those two items you mentioned there?
Well, I believe it was, the best I can recall, it was for an injunction and a declaratory judgment action. So they talked about damages. They talked about the money they were losing. And we all know that there's a lot of people hurting in a lot of different ways, and especially these businesses that, were doing well. Actually, their lawsuit said that their business was up by 56% last year. And so now they've been forced to close. So somebody was going to bring this, and I saw that coming. And obviously, you saw what the federal court did in Kentucky. They struck down Governor Beshear's order saying that you couldn't go to church or worship in any way you want to. And so, again, we've already seen them weigh in a little bit, but I do think it'll be interesting to see what the court decides in this case.
All right, moving on from that, where it comes down to you and I and everyday people out there, many of whom may have everything from speeding tickets they need to deal with to maybe some little civil actions that they're taking. And you and I have talked a lot about this, and I've been over there. What's the status right now as things slowly start to open, be it in Davidson County or elsewhere, and you're an attorney, with our court system? When is it going to get up and running? And a lot of people right now are saying, Phyllis says, it's great to see Nick on the show. A lot of people miss seeing you, and a lot of people want to know, when is going to be the next gavel-to-gavel trial? We were talking about the Delkey case with the Hambrick shooting, and that was due to start in June. That's not happening now. What are you seeing right now with the courts?
Well, so let's unpack some of that. There's a lot there. Starting back in March, the Supreme Court of Tennessee issued an order saying that in-person court proceedings were going to be banned for the interim, and they did it for 30 days back through the month of April, and they also extended that through the month of May. And what our Chief Justice has requested is that each judicial district submit plans for reopening, and the Chief Justice will approve those plans if they are compliant with what the court is intending, as well as, with CDC guidelines. And so once it's approved, then they can reopen. And so if you are wondering about, if you're in a surrounding county in the viewing area, if you would go to Tennessee Administrative Office of the Courts, you can just Google that. If you go to the Tennessee Administrative Office of the Courts website, you will find orders in some of these jurisdictions that allow for reopening. Now, Nashville, they just submitted theirs, is my understanding, and that's done by the presiding judge, Joe Binkley, who has been the presiding judge for 10 years, had to submit an order to the Chief Justice, and it had to deal with general sessions courts, which you're talking about detainers or evictions, and criminal cases, also our criminal courts, our chancery courts, our family law courts, our probate court, but also Judge Binkley had to go out and come up with a plan for Belmead, City Court, and Berry Hill, and some of these other, and Goodlettsville, some of these lesser municipalities that also have traffic courts. So once this gets approved, and I'm sure that it will be approved, then we will gradually begin reopening the 1st of June. But what that looks like is still a little unclear. But I will tell you that I think, for example, the Birch building here in town, I think it's going to resemble more of an airport. I think you go in, I think that you have your temperature taken. Once you go through the magnetometer to make sure that you don't have any weapons, and then there'll be someone ask you some health questions, 3 or 4 health questions, and then there'll be someone from the clerk's office making sure that you're on today's docket somewhere in that courthouse. Now, that is some problems they have to iron out as well. I mean, a lot of times people will bring witnesses, whether it be on an eviction that someone says that they saw an individual pay the landlord in cash, or whether it's someone, a domestic violence case. A lot of times victims of domestic violence will bring support folks with them to court because it's a scary thing. And so, again, that's going to be something that we have to wade through and see what that looks like. I think there's going to be staggered dockets as opposed to everything starting at 9. There may be a 9:30 docket, a noon docket, a 2 o'clock docket. And so we're going to gradually start reopening. But in the interim, we've been doing exactly what we're doing right now, Nick, on the emergency cases and things that have to be heard. Lawyers have had to kind of get into the 21st century along with the court system, and we're using Zoom to do hearings such as we're doing right now. And I think a lot of the lawyers have liked that.
All right, listen, we got to take a break. I want to talk more about that technology and how, if that can or can't translate to a big-time criminal trial where, you have juries and how that works. And I know you and I have talked about that. So get your thoughts together on that. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We may take a few phone calls, and we'll cover a few more bases on exactly what we can see happening with the legal system, the way it shakes out, and when you and I may get a chance to do another gavel-to-gavel trial. We'll be right back with more with Nick right after this.
Storm 5 weather update. Well, weather